The rain hammered against the windshield of her 15-year-old Honda as Sarah Torres pulled into the hospital parking garage at 2:47 a.m. Her scrubs stuck to her back, damp with sweat despite the October chill. 12 hours. 12 hours of code blues, screaming patients, and a pharmacy system that crashed twice. She twisted the key, and the engine died with a shudder that matched exactly how she felt inside. Sarah pressed her forehead against the steering wheel. The parking garage was nearly empty at this hour. Just a handful of cars belonging to the overnight shift workers who understood what it meant to watch the world sleep while you held it together. Her phone buzzed. Another text from the hospital billing department. She didn't open it. She already knew what it said. The same thing it had said for the past 8 months. Past due. Payment required. Final notice. $23,000. That's what it cost to watch someone you love die slowly. That's what 18 months of her brother's treatment added up to, even with insurance, even with her employee discount, even with every extra shift she could pick up. Sarah grabbed her bag and pushed the car door open. The parking garage echoed with her footsteps as she headed toward the stairwell. She needed to get home. Her roommate's shift started at 7, and Sarah wanted at least 4 hours of sleep before she had to be back here tomorrow night, or tonight, or whatever you called it when the days blurred together like wet paint. That's when she heard it. A small sound, almost like a kitten, a whimper that didn't belong in a parking garage at 3 in the morning. Sarah froze, her hand on the stairwell door. She should keep walking. She should go home. She should mind her own business like everyone else in this city did. But she was a nurse. She'd spent the last 6 years of her life moving towards sounds of distress while everyone else moved away. She turned around. Between a black Mercedes and a silver Lexus, barely visible in the fluorescent light, sat a child. A little girl, maybe 6 or 7, wearing a pink dress that seemed absurdly formal for this hour. Her dark hair fell in tangles around her face, and her small shoulders shook with silent sobs. "Hey," Sarah said softly, approaching slowly. She'd learned how to move around frightened people. "Hey, sweetheart, are you okay?" The girl looked up, and Sarah's heart cracked. Tear tracks streaked her face, and her eyes held that particular kind of terror that children get when they realize they're completely, utterly lost. "I can't find him," the girl whispered. "I can't find my daddy." Sarah knelt down, ignoring the protest from her knees after 12 hours on her feet. "Okay, that's okay. We're going to find him. My name's Sarah. What's your name?" "Maya." The girl's voice was so small. "Maya Harrison. That's a beautiful name. Maya, do you know where you last saw your daddy?" The girl pointed up, toward the upper levels of the parking garage, in the building. "But I got lost. I tried to find the bathroom, and then I couldn't remember which floor," and her voice broke into fresh sobs. Sarah's mind raced through the possibilities. This was the parking garage attached to the Riverside Medical Center complex, but it also connected to the adjacent Riverside office tower. At 3 in the morning, the hospital would be staffed, but the office building would be nearly empty. Except for, "Was your daddy in a meeting?" Sarah asked gently. Maya nodded. "He said it was going to be quick. He said I could wait in his office and watch a movie, but I got scared because it was dark, and I wanted to find him. And hey, it's okay." Sarah reached out slowly and touched the girl's shoulder. "You're safe now. I work here. I'm a nurse. And I promise we're going to find your daddy, okay?" Maya looked up at her with those huge, terrified eyes. "Promise?" "I promise." Sarah stood and held out her hand. Maya took it with a grip that was surprisingly strong for such a small person. As they walked toward the elevator that connected to the office tower, Sarah's exhausted brain tried to piece together what kind of parent left a 6-year-old alone in an office during the middle of the night. The judgment came automatically, the way it always did in her profession, but she pushed it down. She didn't know this man's story. She didn't know his circumstances. She only knew that his daughter was scared, and that was something Sarah could fix. The elevator doors opened on the 8th floor of the office tower, and Sarah's stomach sank. The entire floor was dark, except for one corner office where light spilled out into the hallway. Through the glass walls, she could see a conference room. 4 people sat around a table covered in papers and laptops. None of them looked like they were having a good time. "That's my daddy," Maya said, pointing at a man with his back to them. Dark hair, expensive suit, even at this hour, shoulders that carried the kind of tension that Sarah recognized from her own reflection. Sarah hesitated. This was clearly an important meeting. These people had the look of executives making decisions that affected hundreds of employees. But Maya's grip on her hand tightened, and Sarah made her choice. She knocked on the glass. All 4 heads turned. The man Maya had pointed to stood up so fast, his chair rolled backward. For a second, Sarah saw his face transform from confusion to recognition to pure, overwhelming relief. Then he was moving, practically running toward the door. "Maya!" He burst into the hallway and dropped to his knees in front of his daughter. "Oh my God, Maya, where were you?" "I've been..." He pulled her into his arms, and Sarah saw his hands shake as he held her. "I thought when I went to check on you and you weren't there." "I'm sorry, Daddy," Maya sobbed into his shoulder. "I got lost." "It's okay. It's okay, baby. You're okay." He looked up at Sarah, and she saw something in his eyes that she recognized. That specific brand of terror that came from almost losing someone you loved. "Thank you. Thank you so much. Where did you find her?" "Parking garage, level 2. Sarah kept her voice professional, though something about this man's raw emotion made her own eyes sting. She was pretty scared, but she's okay. No injuries. He stood up, still holding Maya, and Sarah realized he was tall. Probably 6'2", maybe 6'3". He had the kind of face that would be handsome if it wasn't currently pale with fear. "I'm James Harrison. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me. I'm just glad she's safe." Sarah started to back away. "I should let you get back to your meeting." "Wait." James shifted Maya in his arms. "At least let me. What's your name?" "Sara Torres." "Sarah." He said it like he was memorizing it. "Do you work here, at the hospital?" "Yeah. Night shift, nurse." "I was just heading home when I heard her." Something crossed his face. Understanding, maybe, or respect. "You must be exhausted. And you still stopped." Sarah shrugged. "That's the job." One of the other executives appeared in the doorway. "James, we really need to finalize these numbers," before the woman stopped when she saw Maya. Oh, thank God." "We're done here," James said, his voice suddenly hard. "Cancel the rest. We'll pick this up tomorrow." "But the investors..." "I said we're done." James looked down at Maya, and his expression softened. "Some things are more important." Sarah watched the woman retreat back into the conference room, and for the first time, she felt a flicker of curiosity about who this James Harrison was. The office building was called Riverside, but it housed dozens of companies, tech startups, law firms, consulting agencies. He could be anyone. "I should go," Sarah said again. "I'm glad everything worked out." This time, James let her leave. But as Sarah walked back toward the elevator, she heard him say to Maya, "That lady was an angel, sweetheart. A real angel." Sarah smiled to herself as the elevator doors closed. She wasn't an angel. She was just a nurse who was too tired to ignore a crying child. That was all. She was wrong. The next morning, or rather, later that same morning, Sarah woke to her phone ringing. She grabbed it without opening her eyes. "Hello? Is this Sarah Torres?" A professional-sounding woman's voice. "Yeah. Who's this?" "My name is Jennifer Chen. I'm calling from Harrison Analytics. We'd like to invite you to lunch today to properly thank you for helping Mr. Harrison's daughter last night." Sarah sat up, suddenly awake. "That's really not necessary. Mr. Harrison insists. Please, it would mean a great deal to him." Something in the woman's tone made Sarah pause. This wasn't just politeness. This was something deeper. "What time?" "Would noon work?" "We can send a car." Sarah almost laughed. "I don't need a car. Just tell me where." Jennifer gave her the address of a restaurant that Sarah had walked past 100 times but never entered. The kind of place where the menu didn't list prices because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. I'm not really dressed, for Sarah looked down at her pajama pants. Casual is fine. Mr. Harrison specifically said to tell you that. Sarah hung up and stared at her phone. This was weird. This was definitely weird. But she was also curious. And maybe, underneath the exhaustion and the stress and the constant worry about money, there was a small part of her that wanted to see this man again. Not for any romantic reason. God, no. She didn't have the energy for that. But there had been something in his face when he held his daughter. Something real in a world that felt increasingly fake. She went. The restaurant was called the Riverside Room, which seemed to be a theme in this part of the city. Sarah arrived 5 minutes early, wearing the nicest thing she owned that wasn't scrubs, a simple blue dress she'd bought for her brother's funeral. The hostess took one look at her and seemed about to say something dismissive when a man in a suit appeared. "Miss Torres," he smiled warmly. "I'm Marcus, Mr. Harrison's assistant. Please, follow me." They were led to a private room at the back of the restaurant. James Harrison stood when she entered, and Sarah noticed that he looked completely different in the daylight. Less terrified, more confident, but also more tired. There were dark circles under his eyes that matched her own. "Sarah, thank you for coming." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Please, sit. Order anything you want." "Mr. Harrison." "James, please." Sarah sat, feeling increasingly out of place. "James, this really isn't necessary. I didn't do anything special. You found my daughter alone and scared at 3 in the morning and made sure she was safe. That's not nothing." He poured her water from a crystal pitcher. "Do you have children?" "No." The word came out sharper than she intended. "I had a younger brother. He passed away 8 months ago." James's expression shifted immediately. "I'm so sorry." Sarah stopped. It wasn't okay. It would never be okay. But you had to say something. It was a long illness. He was ready. They sat in silence for a moment. Then James said, "My wife died 6 years ago, when Maya was born. Complications during delivery. I'm sorry." "So you understand." He met her eyes, and Sarah realized that he really did want to connect with her. This wasn't just about gratitude. This was about recognition. Two people who understood what it meant to lose someone. "It's just been me and Maya since then. And last night, when I couldn't find her, I thought." He stopped and looked away. "I thought I might lose her too." Sarah felt something crack inside her chest. "But you didn't. She's okay. Because of you." The server appeared then, and James ordered for both of them without looking at the menu. Sarah should have been annoyed by the presumption, but she was too tired to care. When the food came, some kind of salmon with vegetables she couldn't pronounce, she realized she hadn't eaten anything since dinner yesterday. She ate. They both did. And slowly the conversation shifted. James told her about Harrison Analytics, the software company he'd built from nothing 12 years ago. How they helped businesses optimize their operations, which sounded boring but apparently made him wealthy enough to afford private school for Maya and restaurants with no prices. He told her about the balancing act of being a single father and a CEO, about the guilt that came with every missed recital and every late-night meeting. Sarah told him about nursing, about the impossible choices they made every day, about patients who haunted her years later. She told him about her brother, about how he'd been her best friend, about how the medical bills had piled up until they became a mountain she couldn't climb. "How much?" James asked quietly. "What? How much do you owe?" Sarah felt her face flush. "That's personal. I'm sorry." "You're right." James set down his fork. "I'm asking because I'd like to help." "Absolutely not." "Sarah." "No." She stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. "I didn't help Maya because I wanted money. I helped her because she needed help. That's what people are supposed to do. You don't owe me anything." James stood too. "I know that. I'm not trying to buy you off, or this isn't about owing you. This is about the fact that you're drowning in debt from trying to save your brother's life, and I have the resources to help." "Why is that wrong?" "Because I don't need your charity." "It's not charity. It's gratitude. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Look, I grew up poor, really poor. I know what it's like to have pride as the only thing you own, but I also know that sometimes accepting help is the bravest thing you can do. Sarah's hands shook. She hated that he was right. She hated that she wanted to say yes. She hated that $23,000 could be nothing to him and everything to her. I can't, she whispered. I just can't. She left before he could argue further, left the private room, left the restaurant, left behind the salmon and the crystal water pitchers and the man who looked at her like he understood. Outside, the October air bit at her skin. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself and walked toward the bus stop. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I'm sorry if I offended you. That wasn't my intention. But please know that the offer stands. Always. James. Sarah deleted the message. Then she blocked the number. Then she sat at the bus stop and cried for the first time since her brother's funeral. She went back to work that night, and the night after, and the one after that. The rhythm of nursing consumed her again. Vital signs and medication rounds, and the desperate dance of keeping people alive. She thought about James Harrison sometimes, usually at 3 in the morning when the hospital was quietest. Wondered if he was having another late-night meeting. Wondered if Maya was okay. Wondered what it would have been like to say yes. 3 weeks later, Sarah's supervisor called her into the office. We need to talk about your brother's account, Patricia said, not unkindly. She was a good supervisor, one of the few who remembered that nurses were people too. Zara's stomach dropped. I'm trying. I've been making payments. The account is settled. What? Someone paid it off, the entire balance, 2 days ago. Sarah felt the room tilt. That's not possible. I didn't. Who? Patricia handed her a piece of paper. The payment came from a foundation, the Harrison Memorial Foundation specifically. I looked it up. It was established 6 years ago in memory of someone named Diana Harrison. They focus on medical debt relief for families of terminal patients. Sarah stared at the paper. $23,000, marked paid in full, and at the bottom a note. In honor of Sarah Torres's brother, whose kindness continues to inspire others. How did he? Sarah started, then stopped. James hadn't paid it directly. He'd done it through his foundation, the one he'd probably set up for his dead wife. A foundation that helped people exactly like Sarah. It wasn't charity. It was what the foundation did. But somehow, Sarah knew he'd made sure her application, if there had even been an application, went to the top of the list. Patricia leaned forward. Sarah, I don't know what you did to catch this foundation's attention, but they also want to talk to you about something. A woman named Jennifer Chen called. She left a number. Sarah took the paper and walked out in a daze. She went through the motions of her shift, but her mind was elsewhere. James had done this. Despite her rejection, despite her pride, he'd found a way to help that let her keep her dignity, or at least most of it. She waited until her lunch break at 2 a.m. to call Jennifer Chen. Miss Torres, Jennifer answered on the second ring. Thank you for calling back. I don't understand what's happening. The Harrison Memorial Foundation paid off your brother's medical debt as part of our regular screening process. We identify families in need and provide assistance. But Mr. Harrison would also like to speak with you about something else. A job opportunity. I have a job. Not as a nurse, as the Foundation's Director of Outreach. Sarah almost dropped her phone. What? The Foundation is expanding. We're looking for someone who understands the healthcare system from the inside. Someone who can identify the people who need help most. Someone with compassion and integrity. Jennifer paused. Mr. Harrison thought of you immediately. I'm not qualified for that. You're exactly qualified. You've lived it, and you'd be paid well. 6-figure salary, full benefits, and you'd be helping hundreds of families like yours. Sarah sat down on the curb outside the hospital emergency entrance. This was too much. This was crazy. But it was also God. It was tempting. I need to think about it, she said finally. Of course. Take all the time you need. Sarah didn't sleep that day. She lay in bed and stared at the ceiling and thought about her brother, about how he'd always believed in paying kindness forward, about how he'd been an organ donor, how even in death he'd tried to help others. That's when it hit her. She sat up, grabbed her laptop, and started searching. Diana Harrison died 6 years ago, complications during childbirth. But before that, Sarah found the article in an archived newspaper. Diana Harrison had been an organ donor. When she died, her organs had saved 4 people who got to live because a young mother hadn't. Sarah's hands shook as she clicked through to the organ donation registry, found her brother's donor number, found the recipients list, and there, buried in the anonymized data, was a notation that made her heart stop. Liver recipient, female, died in childbirth 6 months after transplant, cause of death unrelated to organ function. It couldn't be, could it? Sarah called Jennifer Chen back at 6 in the morning. I need to ask you something. Diana Harrison, she had a liver transplant, didn't she? Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. Yes, about a year before Maya was born. How did you? My brother. He was killed by a drunk driver 8 years ago. He was an organ donor. His liver went to a young woman in the next state. I never knew who she was, but Sarah's voice broke. It was her, wasn't it? We don't have access to donor records, but when Mr. Harrison learned about your brother's death, he did some research. He couldn't confirm it officially, but the timing, the location, the circumstances, Jennifer trailed off. He thought you should know. Sarah closed her eyes. Her brother had given Diana Harrison 1 more year. 1 year to fall in love with her husband, to get pregnant, to give birth to a little girl. 1 year that had rippled forward to create Maya, to create the foundation, to eventually circle back and save Sarah. I'll take the job, Sarah whispered. 2 days later, Sarah walked into the Harrison Analytics building. James met her in the lobby personally. He didn't hug her, didn't make a big deal of it, just shook her hand and said, "Welcome aboard." "Thank you," Sarah said, "for everything. I should be thanking you. You gave me back my daughter, and now you're going to help us save hundreds of other families." He smiled, and for the first time, Sarah saw real joy in his face. Diana would have loved this. She always said that the greatest thing we can do is help others find hope. That's beautiful. That's why I named the foundation after her. And that's why he stopped, looked uncomfortable. That's why I'm so glad you're here. We need more people who understand that helping isn't about money. It's about seeing someone in need and choosing not to look away. Sarah thought about that night in the parking garage, about Maya crying between the cars, about how easy it would have been to walk past, to go home, to mind her own business. "I almost kept walking," she admitted. "I was so tired. I just wanted to go home." "But you didn't." "No, I didn't." They walked through the office together, and James introduced her to the staff. Jennifer Chen, who turned out to be brilliant and organized and the kind of person who made things happen. Marcus, James's assistant, who had a dry sense of humor and kept candy in his desk drawer for Maya when she visited. The accountants and the grant writers and the outreach coordinators who had been doing this work for years. Sarah's job was to find the families, to identify the people falling through the cracks, the ones drowning in medical debt like she had been. She was good at it, better than she'd expected, because she knew what to look for. The tired eyes, the defensive pride, the way people's voices changed when they talked about money. In the first 3 months, they helped 47 families. By 6 months, it was almost 200. Sarah worked longer hours than she ever had as a nurse, but it felt different. She was still helping people, still making a difference, but now she could see the broader impact, could see how one intervention changed not just a person's financial situation, but their entire outlook on life. James was a good boss. He trusted her, gave her autonomy, and never once treated her like she was beneath him. They developed an easy working relationship, built on mutual respect and shared loss. Sometimes Maya would come to the office after school, and Sarah would help her with homework while James finished meetings. It felt natural, like family, but not quite. 8 months into the job, Sarah attended a foundation event at a downtown hotel, a fundraiser with wealthy donors and politicians and all the people who could afford to help others. She wore the same blue dress from that first lunch, and she didn't care that it was less expensive than everyone else's outfits. She belonged here now. James gave a speech. He talked about Diana, about losing her, about how the foundation was his way of making sure her death meant something. He talked about the families they'd helped, the lives they'd changed. And then he said, "But I want to tell you about someone else, someone who embodies everything this foundation stands for." 8 months ago, my daughter Maya wandered away from my office in the middle of the night. She was lost and terrified, and everyone who saw her kept walking. Everyone except one exhausted nurse who had every reason to ignore her. Sarah Torres stopped. She helped. She asked for nothing in return. And in doing so, she reminded me of something essential, that kindness isn't about what we can afford to give. It's about choosing to see each other's humanity. Sarah felt her face flush as people turned to look at her. Sarah's brother died 8 years ago. He was an organ donor, and though we can't confirm it officially, we believe his liver saved my wife's life. Gave us 1 more year together. Gave the world, Maya. James's voice cracked, and Sarah saw him blink back tears. Sarah lost her brother, and years later, she saved my daughter. She didn't know about the connection. She just saw a scared child and helped. That's what we're trying to create here, a world where people help each other, not because they know how it will come back around, but simply because it's the right thing to do. The room erupted in applause. Sarah stood, uncomfortable with the attention but also profoundly moved. She caught James's eye across the room, and he mouthed, "Thank you." After the event, as people mingled and drank champagne, James found her on the balcony. The city lights spread out below them, millions of lives intersecting in ways they'd never understand. "I should have asked before using your story," James said. "I'm sorry. It's okay. It needed to be told." Sarah looked out at the city. "Do you think they knew? Diana and my brother? Do you think they knew how things would work out?" "I don't know. I'd like to think so." "Me too." They stood in comfortable silence. Then James said, "Maya wants to know if you'll come to dinner on Sunday. She's been asking about you." "I'd like that." "Good." James smiled. "She's decided you're her favorite person. She told me yesterday that when she grows up, she wants to be like you." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "Really? Really?" She said, "You're the bravest person she knows because you help people even when it's hard." "She's going to make me cry." "She has that effect on people." James turned to face her. "Sarah, I need to tell you something. When I offered to pay your medical debt that day at lunch, I wasn't trying to buy your gratitude or make you feel obligated. I was trying to give you the same thing Diana got from your brother, a second chance. A chance to stop drowning and start living. I'm sorry if I made you feel like your pride was something wrong. You didn't. I mean, you did at first." But Sarah laughed. "I get it now. Accepting help isn't weakness. It's just part of being human." "Exactly." They went back inside together, back to the donors and the speeches and the work of making the world slightly better. And Sarah realized that she was happy. For the first time since her brother died, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The following months blurred together in the best way. The foundation grew. They hired more staff, expanded their reach, helped more families. Sarah traveled to hospitals across the state, training nurses and social workers to identify people in need. She became the face of the foundation in a way that James never could be, because she'd lived it. She knew what it meant to be desperate and proud and terrified all at once. Maya turned 7, and Sarah was invited to the birthday party. She bought Maya a telescope because the girl had mentioned wanting to see the stars. When Maya opened it, she'd thrown her arms around Sarah and said, "You remembered." "Of course I remembered," Sarah had replied, hugging her back. James watched them with an expression Sarah couldn't quite read. Later, when the party was winding down, he'd said, "You're good with her. She's easy to be good with. Not for everyone. Most of my dates have—" He stopped, looking embarrassed. "Sorry, that's not appropriate." It's fine. You date? Not really. Not successfully, anyway. Maya's my priority, and most people don't get that. He looked at Sarah. You get it, though, because I've been her. Not the daughter of a CEO, obviously, but the kid who just wants the adults in their life to show up. Sarah remembered her own childhood, her parents who worked 3 jobs between them to keep food on the table. How her brother had been the one who came to her school events, her soccer games, her concerts. Maya's lucky to have you. I hope so. I'm trying. A year passed. Then another. The foundation helped thousands of families. Sarah's face appeared in newspapers and on local TV as the director who'd transformed her own tragedy into purpose. She was asked to speak at conferences, at medical schools, at fundraising galas, and always James was there, supporting her, proud of her, treating her like an equal partner in the work. They never talked about romance, never crossed that line. But there was something between them, a connection built on shared loss and mutual respect, and the strange way their lives had tangled together. Sarah knew that Maya wanted them to be together. The 7-year-old had all the subtlety of a wrecking ball when it came to seating arrangements at dinner or suggesting that Sarah should come on vacation with us. But Sarah wasn't ready, might never be ready, and James seemed to understand that without her having to say it. Until the day everything changed. Sarah was in her office reviewing grant applications when Jennifer knocked on her door. You should come out here. In the main conference room, every staff member had gathered. On the screen, a news broadcast played. Sarah recognized the hospital Riverside Medical Center where she'd worked for 6 years. The anchor's voice was somber. Shooting in the emergency department. At least 3 people injured, including 2 nurses and a security guard. The shooter was subdued by hospital staff, but Sarah's phone rang. Her old supervisor, Patricia. Are you watching the news? Yes. What happened? A patient got violent. Mental health crisis, from what I understand. Sarah, he shot Amy. She's in surgery now. Amy. Sarah's protégé, the new nurse she'd mentored before leaving, a 24-year-old with her whole career ahead of her. Is she going to make it? We don't know. Her family is here, but they don't have insurance. The medical bills, Patricia's voice broke. I thought of you, of your foundation. We're on our way. Sarah grabbed her bag, told Jennifer to clear her schedule, and headed for the door. James caught her in the hallway. I'm coming with you. You don't have to. Sarah, I'm coming. They drove to the hospital in silence. When they arrived, the emergency department was chaos. Police everywhere, crime scene tape, news cameras setting up outside. Sarah flashed her old badge, technically expired, but no one checked, and they were let through to the surgical waiting room. Amy's family was there. Her mother, her teenage sister, both looking shell-shocked. Sarah introduced herself, explained about the foundation, promised them that they wouldn't have to worry about the bills, that they could focus on Amy getting better. James hung back, letting Sarah handle it. This was her world, her expertise. But when Amy's mother started crying and thanking them over and over, he stepped forward and said quietly, "Your daughter is a hero. She was helping someone who needed help, even when it was dangerous. That's what nurses do. That's what Sarah did, and we're honored to help however we can." Amy survived the surgery. She'd have a long recovery, possible disability, trauma to work through, but she'd live, and her family wouldn't go bankrupt because of it. On the drive back to the office, Sarah said, "That could have been me. Any night I worked, that could have been me. But it wasn't. Only because I got lucky, because I left when I did." She looked at James. "Do you ever think about timing? About how, if one thing had been different, everything would have changed? Every day. If Diana hadn't gotten that liver, she wouldn't have lived long enough to get pregnant. If she hadn't died during delivery, I might still be working 100-hour weeks, ignoring my daughter. If Maya hadn't gotten lost, I never would have met you." James pulled into the parking garage, the same garage where this had all started. "Every moment of my life has led to this one. I have to believe that means something." Sarah nodded. She understood. Her brother's death had been senseless and tragic, but it had also set in motion a chain of events that had saved hundreds of people, including her. That night, alone in her apartment, Sarah pulled out a box she kept in her closet, her brother's things, his wallet, his watch, his organ donor card. She held the card and thought about Diana Harrison, about the liver that gave her one more year, about Maya, who existed because of her brother's choice to be a donor. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." 2 years after Sarah started working at the foundation, they held their biggest fundraiser yet. A gala at the convention center with over 1,000 guests. They'd helped more than 5,000 families at this point, with more being added every month. Sarah had become a minor celebrity in healthcare circles, known for her passionate advocacy and her ability to navigate both the medical and philanthropic worlds. She wore a new dress for the occasion, something Jennifer had insisted on buying her, emerald green and elegant. When she arrived at the gala, James was already there, looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo. "I hate these things," he admitted. "You're the founder. You have to be here." "I know. Doesn't mean I have to like it." He looked at her, and something shifted in his expression. "You look beautiful." Sarah felt herself flush. "Thank you. I mean it, not just tonight, always. He stopped, seemed to reconsider his words. "You're an amazing person, Sarah. I hope you know that." Before Sarah could respond, Maya appeared. She was 9 now, tall and confident, and so much like her father. She wore a pink dress and a huge smile. "Sarah, did you see the video they made? It has pictures of everyone we helped." "I haven't yet. Want to watch it with me?" Maya grabbed her hand, and Sarah let herself be pulled toward the screen where the foundation's promotional video played on loop. It showed families they'd helped, testimonials from grateful recipients, statistics about their impact. And there, in the middle, was a photo Sarah had never seen before. Her brother, young and smiling, wearing his paramedic uniform. He'd been killed coming home from a shift, hit by a drunk driver who ran a red light. Below his photo, text read, "Thomas Torres, 1980, 8 to 2017, organ donor. His gift of life continues through every family we help." Sarah's knees buckled. James caught her. "I should have told you," he said quietly. "I'm sorry. I wanted to honor him, but I should have asked first." "It's perfect," Sarah whispered. "He would have loved this." The video ended, and the room erupted in applause. Sarah wiped her eyes and tried to compose herself. This was a happy occasion, a celebration of all the good they'd done. James was called up to give his speech. He talked about the foundation's mission, about the families they'd helped, about the importance of community support. And then he said, 3 years ago my daughter got lost. She was terrified and alone, and a stranger could have ignored her. But Sarah Torres didn't ignore her. She stopped. She helped. And in doing so, she reminded me that we're all connected in ways we can't always see. Sarah's brother saved my wife's life. Years later, Sarah saved my daughter. And together, we've saved thousands of others. That's the power of choosing kindness. That's the power of believing in each other. He gestured to Sarah. "I'd like to invite our Director of Outreach, Sarah Torres, to say a few words." Sarah hadn't prepared anything. She walked up to the microphone on shaking legs and looked out at 1,000 faces. "I almost didn't stop," she said, her voice echoing through the room. "The night I met Maya, I was exhausted. I'd worked 12 hours. I just wanted to go home. I heard her crying, and for a second I thought about keeping walking, about letting someone else deal with it, but I didn't. I stopped. And that choice changed my life." She took a breath. "My brother used to say that we're all just walking each other home, that everyone we meet is fighting a battle we know nothing about, and the least we can do is be kind." He lived that philosophy every day as a paramedic. And when he died, even in death, he chose to help others by being an organ donor. Sarah's voice cracked, but she pushed through. "I've spent the last 3 years helping families crushed by medical debt, and I've learned something. People don't want charity. They want dignity. They want to be seen. They want someone to stop and say, I see you struggling, and you're not alone. That's what this foundation does. That's what James created in memory of his wife Diana. And that's what I'm committed to, continuing in memory of my brother Thomas. She looked directly at James. 3 years ago, you offered to help me, and I was too proud to accept. I thought accepting help meant I was weak, but I've learned that the strongest thing we can do is admit when we need each other. So thank you, James, for seeing me, for believing in me, for creating a place where my pain could become purpose. The room erupted in applause. Sarah walked back to her seat in a daze. Maya hugged her. James squeezed her hand, and for the first time since her brother died, Sarah felt complete. After the gala, after all the donors had left and the staff had gone home, Sarah and James stood in the empty convention center. Maya was asleep in a chair, still wearing her pink dress. She didn't want to leave, James said, looking at his daughter fondly. She had a good time. Because of you. She told me yesterday that you're her hero. James turned to Sarah. She's not wrong. James, let me finish, please. He took a breath. When Diana died, I thought I'd never feel whole again. I threw myself into work, into building this foundation, into being the best father I could be. But there was always something missing, and then you showed up, and everything clicked into place. You made me remember what it feels like to hope, to believe in people, to see the good in the world. Sarah's heart pounded. What are you saying? I'm saying that I love you. I think I've loved you since that night in the parking garage, watching you comfort my daughter with such gentle patience. I love the way you fight for people. I love your stubbornness and your compassion and the way you make Maya laugh. I love that you understand what it means to lose someone and keep going anyway. Tears streamed down Sarah's face. I love you too. I didn't want to. It seemed too complicated, too messy. But I do. I love you, and I love Maya, and I love this life we've built together. James kissed her then, soft and careful and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Maya was awake and watching them with the biggest smile Sarah had ever seen. Finally, Maya said, I've been waiting forever. They laughed, all three of them, and Sarah realized this was what her brother had meant, about walking each other home, about being kind, about choosing to stop when everyone else keeps walking. 6 months later, Sarah moved into James's house, the one with the big backyard and the telescope Maya had asked for. They didn't get married right away. Both agreed they wanted to take things slow, to build a foundation as solid as the one they'd created for the charity. But they were a family. The three of them together, healing old wounds, creating new memories. Sarah kept working at the foundation, kept helping families, kept telling her brother's story. And every night, when she tucked Maya into bed, the little girl would say, Tell me about Uncle Thomas. And Sarah would tell her about the brother who'd always looked out for her, about the paramedic who'd saved lives, about the organ donor who'd given a woman named Diana 1 more year, about how one act of kindness rippled forward in ways no one could predict. Do you think he knows? Maya asked one night. About us? Sarah thought about it, about the impossible chain of events that had brought them all together, about how her darkest moment had somehow led to this, a family, a purpose, a life full of meaning. Yeah, she said softly, I think he knows, and I think he's proud. She was right.